team. We have Tory, we have Maher, we have Gaurav. It's great to see so many folks here. We'll give it one more minute, guys, and then we will jump straight in. How is everyone doing today? I'm curious, by the way, has anyone read the State of the Network? We pushed it out. I know that a lot of people in our Discord communities have read it so far, and they're really excited about Ionet's mission and vision. So if you've not had a chance to read it yet, please feel free to do so. A lot of the questions that we're going to answer today are going to be based on the State of the Network, and Tory will sort of unpack that in more detail shortly. So we'll just give it 30 more seconds and then dive straight into it. All right, let's do it. Welcome everyone. It's such a pleasure to have you here and so many people here. We have over 800 people on the space right now. Incredibly exciting. So first and foremost, a very warm welcome to you all. I'm Milan. I'm the CMO of Ionet, and a real pleasure to be here. On the line as well, we have Tory, we have Maher, we have Zach, we have Gaurav, so many people from the Ionet team. So Tory, welcome to the State of the Network AMA. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Milan. Thank you. And it's great to see everyone.
Yeah, super exciting to see everyone, especially midweek. Everyone's joining. Everyone's excited about the project, and it's really nice to hear the incredible positive sentiment that we've had around the State of the Network. So with that being said, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Ionet, Tory is the CEO of Ionet, and he's created a document to really lay out the mission and vision of what Ionet is building here. And essentially, this entire AMA is to unpack that in a little bit more detail and answer some of the questions, especially for those of you who might not be so familiar on what Ionet is, what we're building, why we're building it in more detail. So with that being said, guys, I am going to jump into the very first question. So Tory, over to you. And my first question is, for those of you who are a little bit more new to Ionet, can you give us a brief introduction on what Ionet is, and perhaps even what makes it unique in the cloud computing industry?
Sure. So I think the easiest way to describe Ionet is as an Airbnb for GPUs. Now, what does that mean? Why is that important? So to understand that, you first need to understand that GPUs and compute in general is becoming very valuable. In fact, many people have said that it's the new oil. And why is that? It's because GPUs are the lifeblood of AI. Machine and deep learning models are built, optimized, and operated using GPUs. Now, as you all know, AI has grown dramatically. I think ChatGPT is the most popular app ever. It reached 100 million users in just 2 months. And that's 15 times faster than Instagram, 50 times faster than Netflix. And so there's this enormous demand for GPU compute. The requirements for AI are doubling every 3.4 months. So that's a 10x growth in every 18 months. And unfortunately, the current cloud is not structured to keep up with that. Large cloud players like AWS, GCP, and Azure face all kind of limitations on scaling. There are shortages of GPUs. It's difficult to build more data centers. There's permitting requirements. There's big CapEx requirements. And this basically creates a world where GPUs, because of this limited supply, GPUs are becoming very expensive. They're getting very hard to get. And it's just an overall a really poor customer experience. And so by building this sort of Airbnb of GPUs where we go out and we access all this underutilized supply, and there's a ton of it. There's I think thousands of independent data centers in the US alone operating at 12 to 18% capacity. And there's obviously all these consumer GPUs that aren't being fully utilized. That effectively allows us to dramatically expand the supply and effectively structurally undercut the market and create a service that is quite simply better, faster, and cheaper than the current cloud.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Tory. And for those of you who are just joining in, I've just seen that we're almost at 1,500 people. We were just explaining for those who are not familiar with Ionet, really what it is and what we're building and why we're doing that. So for those of you who are just joining in now, welcome, stay tuned, and we're just hopping on to the next question here, which, Tory, I think there's been so many, that the market's been up and down this year, and there are so many projects launching. I think what I really want to hone in on is some of the key achievements that Ionet has accomplished within this year. I know it's been an incredible year for us, as you tweeted out yesterday. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, Tori, could you share a little bit more light on that?
Yeah, it's been a crazy year. Let's say over the last year, we've built a global network of tens of thousands of GPUs. And that right there allows us to handle some of the biggest computing tasks out there. We raised $40 million from top investors. We through our foundation, we launched a token on Binance. And on top of that, we delivered over 1 million hours of compute and hosted nearly 2 million on-chain transactions. So definitely moving very, very fast.
That's great to hear. And I'm seeing so many comments from some new folks joining. So welcome to everyone. But no, it's been an incredible year for Ionet, and I'm personally incredibly excited. For me, this is just the beginning. We've got 4 or 5 months to go until the end of the year, and looking back on what we've achieved until now, the future is bright. It's incredibly promising, and I know that everyone in Ionet is working extremely hard to end the year with a bang. So thank you for sharing that, Tory. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, it's great to see the progress that we've made, and great for you to be listening in and understanding what more we have planned for the rest of the year. So, Tory, let's just unpack some of this in a little bit more detail regarding the state of the network. You recently published this document. Can you explain, what is the document, and why is it important for the community that you created and shared this document?
Sure, it's effectively our roadmap to world domination. We talked about how the cloud is a multi-trillion-dollar industry. It's actually a $2.5 trillion industry, and it's sort of deeply structurally flawed. And we believe at Ionet that if we execute well, we can capture a significant share of this $2.5 trillion market. And the state of the network effectively details exactly how we plan to do that, both over the next few months and the next few years as well.
Okay, fantastic. And in the state of the network, I know one of the key themes that you touched on is really the enormous potential of the decentralized compute, especially within the context of AI, and really the fantastic opportunity ahead that we have to tackle an issue that's a really hair on fire problem. So I would love to understand from your perspective really how Ionet plans to capitalize on the potential of AI and decentralized compute.
Sure. So one of the things I'm certain of in life is that decentralized compute will undoubtedly disrupt centralized providers. It offers so many advantages. It offers access to massive computing power. Pulling global compute resources to a single platform allows users to access, in theory, unlimited computing power at the click of a button. It's much more scalable. It can actually offer superior performance in some cases, like inferencing. Distributed nodes can act as a de facto CDN, which significantly reduces latency. It's obviously censorship resistant, and we're seeing how big of a problem that's becoming with some of the current the LLMs backed by the big cloud. And perhaps most importantly, it's significantly cheaper, often 60 to 80% cheaper. Now, the thing is, not only are decentralized networks better, faster, cheaper, I would argue that they may be the only way to sort of meet this gap in compute with where AI is going.
Yeah, and it is really interesting because as I'm sure many of you have seen, with the increase in AI adoption, the need for computing power now is higher than ever before. And that's why Ionet is building something that truly makes the demand sustainable and really enable that computing power for so many more people around the world. So thank you so much for sharing that, Tory. Makes complete sense, and I'm incredibly excited to be a part of that journey. Now, one of the things that you've mentioned is that Ionet is building for the long term, and that you're really focusing on driving aggressive growth in multiple areas. I think one of the questions that we're really getting from the community are like, what are the specific strategies that Ionet is implementing to achieve this phenomenal growth, whether it's in revenue, community size, or even tackling this hair on fire problem?
Sure. So, I think when you really sort of back out what we're trying to do, as I mentioned, the core goal is, capture share in this $2.5 trillion market. As I said, I think that a decentralized network will inevitably do that. And so part of our mission as Ionet is to be one of those decentralized networks that captures a lot of the share. And the way you do that is, it's not easy, but it's simple. Basically, you build a business that can compete with AWS, GCP, and Azure. Now, how do you do that? Well, for us, there's really five things that we're focusing on. The first is just continuing to drive aggressive revenue growth. As I mentioned, we have the structural competitive advantage where we can offer a service that we believe is better, faster, cheaper, and we can use that to undercut the competition and continue to grow. Second is to maintain the highest standards in our technical platform. Ideally, we aim to meet or exceed the standards of the traditional cloud providers at a fraction of the cost. Third is continuing to deeply involve the community. One of the cool things about being a decentralized network is we can effectively leverage our community as a source of competitive advantage. AWS, GCP, Azure, they don't have a community that's involved, but we can work with our community to sort of see what's going on in the market and basically remain agile and innovative. Four, we're going to continue to optimize rewards. We're going to work with the IOG Foundation to optimize rewards for both suppliers and also various network participants. We just released staking V1. We're going to release staking V2 pretty soon, which will allow more people to join. And then five, and perhaps most importantly, one of our major goals is to build a world-class team. We already have a great team, but we're going to continue to scale and actively recruit talent, the best talent from obviously Web3, but also cloud computing and AI. And quite frankly, some of the people I'm interviewing now is I'm just going to poach the best people from, CoreWeave, Lambda Labs, AWS, the people who, want to get out there and disrupt the world, and they're bored with working there with these incumbents, but also the people that already have the playbook to build this.
Yeah, and that's what makes this mission so exciting. It's the right talent, it's the right structure, the right strategy behind this growth, and that's always something we want to echo to the community, that growth, when it's tackled in a really multifaceted way amongst several verticals, really enables that sort of momentum to propel. So thank you so much for sharing that, Tory. One of the questions I'm seeing from the community is, when we tackle such a big problem in the industry, and we're disruptive and we're innovative, naturally, a lot of people have questions about security, right? And so one of the questions that I got earlier was like, maintaining an enterprise grade service is naturally a top priority for us. But what steps are we taking to ensure that our platform can compete with those who are already established in the industry, such as AWS and Microsoft Azure? And I've even seen in the comments just now, some of the folks are asking that. So would love your perspective on that, Tory. How are we taking on the giants?
Sure. So as I mentioned, one of our primary objectives is maintaining an enterprise grade platform that matches or exceeds the quality of these guys. And we have several different stages of this rollout. The first, and what we're focused on this quarter and at the end of this year, we're focused on a few things. Number one is we're going to continue to upgrade our proof of work system. We're going to address potential attack vectors, add VRAM checks, enhancing our hardware verification, doing pattern analysis. Two, something we're releasing very soon, we're going to implement tiering and verification. And this is a system that is going to have multiple different levels of tiering for block rewards. Some levels will require staking, some will require KYC or KYB. And this will help basically combat worker spoofing. Third is, as part of staking, we're going to obviously institute a staking and slashing program. We're also going to involve the community in this. We're going to initiate a community data release and rewards program where we share detailed proof of work, uptime, and hardware information with the community. And this will allow them to help identify fraud or inaccuracies and be rewarded for that. And fifth, we're going to be introducing third-party collaboration. So we're going to work with third-party collaborators like Flock to enhance the verification and security of the network. These are all things that we have planned for the next 3 to 4 months. In the long term, we're just going to continue to enhance our platform, basically with the aim of setting the standard for excellence in decentralized computing. We're going to expand our service offerings with the introduction of support for Kubernetes, Ludwig, Slurm, and Nomad, as well as virtual machines. We're also going to integrate other services into our platform, like storage capabilities. And finally, we plan to develop complementary products like a models marketplace, data marketplace, and SDKs that allow users to create dApps. One example of that you can check out is bc8.ai. That's sort of us dog fooding our own product there. And the long-term goal is to basically position us as a de facto one-stop shop for everything decentralized AI.
Incredible. That's phenomenally exciting. And Tori, you touched on something which, is really always at the heart of everything we do, and that is community, right? And community, we love our community. We love how passionate they are, and we work with the community moderators. We work with our astronauts very, very closely, just so that we can always hear your feedback. We can always take on your questions, and we can always give everything that we can to ensure that you feel comfortable with the direction that Ionet is going. But with that being said, Tori, the community is a core component of Ionet's strategy. I would love to understand, how do you plan to involve the community more deeply into the network's growth and development? And what's really your vision between the integration of the community and what Ionet is building?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Communities isn't just part of our network. It's quite frankly, it's a source of competitive advantage. As I mentioned previously, by integrating community feedback and involving community decision making, we can basically get a huge edge over the cloud providers. And we're very fortunate right now to have a great community. We have support in over 25 languages, but we're always trying to make that experience better. In the short term, a few things that we're doing. We're going to be releasing a 3-month roadmap very soon, so the community knows where we're going. We've already committed we provide a minimum of 1 month notice on any changes, so the community can, basically opine and we can get their feedback. We are conducting weekly AMAs with senior leadership. Every Wednesday, I'm on a Discord AMA. Well, except for this Wednesday, I'm on this Twitter space. We've created a formal issue tracker and resolution system, and we're also consistently rolling out new community rewards programs. We just released the astronaut program that allows community members to achieve rewards. Over the long term, I think this is all part of this narrative of progressive decentralization. So we initially built Ionet as a bit more of a centralized entity to ensure stability and growth. But over time, we're going to gradually transition governance and decision making to our community. We're working on things like grants DAOs and token-based voting system, and this is really all in a march to just continually get the community more and more involved, so we can all work to take down big cloud together.
Yeah, and that's really it. You really hit the nail on the head. The community is always at the center of everything we do, and we try and work with you guys as closely as possible. So thank you all for being so passionate. You're always ready to give us feedback. We love how much passion there is in the community and just the feedback that we get, right? And it's the cohesion between your feedback, your passion, your enthusiasm, and what we're building that's always going to get the ball rolling in the direction that we all want. So, a huge shout out to our community members here. Now, looking ahead, Tory, obviously with being such an exciting, disruptive, innovative brand, naturally there will be some challenges. And one of the questions that we do have from the community is, what are really some of the biggest challenges that you personally foresee for Ionet, and how do you plan on overcoming them?
Sure. Great question. I mean, look, competing with AWS, GCP, and Azure is not going to be easy. I mean, these are well-established, extremely well-funded providers. This is going to be a long fight. I mean, it's a big reward, but it's going to be a long, hard fight, and it's definitely not going to happen overnight. But I think we do. It's like we are a classic case of disruption, right? Like this is the innovator's dilemma, right? Like we have structural factors that they simply can't compete with. The same way that hotels could not compete with Airbnb without cannibalizing themselves. So we do have this natural advantage. And so I really think, it's on us to win this market. We just have to execute well because we've already proven that we're a better, faster, cheaper service. We have product market fit. And so it's all about execution. And that goes back to a lot of the different things that I spoke about earlier. It's building that good sales team that can go out and that can, like, poaching the people from AWS that can go out and sell to those same clients and say, hey, like we have the same service for 60% cheaper. It's our tech team continuously maintaining the best platform possible, and eventually getting it to the level where it competes or exceeds AWS. And it's involving community, as I said, and finally it's just continuing to build that team. I actually spend probably 80% of my time as CEO hiring. I believe that the great organizations are nothing more than collections of great people. So like a lot of other founders before, where they sort of handpick the first like 50, 60 employees, like I'm spending all my time handpicking the best of the best to come join this journey to beat Big Cloud.
Totally. And great to be a part of that mission. And so, first of all, thank you, Tory, for answering those questions. We had those questions come in from the community members, and I think that's not only given the community members, it's reinstated our mission and vision, but it's also said to those guys who are slightly unfamiliar with what Ionet is building, why we're building what we're doing, and what is this mission that we're on. And for those of you who are perhaps joining a little bit later or you've not quite checked it out yet, check it out because Tory yesterday released the State of the Network. It really outlines why we're doing what we're doing and what is the problem that we're solving. So that is incredibly exciting to see. Now, with that being said, Tory, and perhaps if anyone else from Ionet would like to hop in, feel free to do so. We have had, in such a short space of time, over 82 questions being fired over to us. And guys, for those of you who don't know, there is going to be a special prize given to the person who has the best question. So if you do not have your question in yet, please feel free to send it in, write it down, because Tory is going to select one or two questions to answer, perhaps even more if we have time. And just to kind of unpack a little bit more, perhaps to deep dive into certain areas that the community wants. So Tory, I don't know if you're able to see the question. There should be a small speech bubble with 82 there, but we would love to know from your perspective, like what is the best question that you have seen so far? Because that special lucky winner will get a little bit of a prize coming to them from their DMs.
I'm actually on mobile, so
okay. I can read a couple out. Give me 1 second.
I can pop it up on my desktop too.
All right, let's see if you're able to do that. And while we're doing that, guys, I'm just going to scan a couple of questions. I can see so many of you writing questions. One of the questions that is always quite interesting to me is meeting the scalability of potentially exponential demand. And we have someone here. Their username is quite interesting, so I'm probably not going to be able to say it. But it says, Tory, how does Ionet plan to scale its computing power to meet the potentially exponential demand? And that's a really big challenge, because when there is that much demand, as I'm sure we've all seen with the rise and revolution of AI, meeting demand at scale is a genuine challenge for a lot of tech companies in the world. So, Tory, like, how do we enable Ionet to be scalable and sustainable in that manner?
Sure, and that's a great question. I think there's really sort of a two-part answer. Yeah, and this, number one, this kind of goes back to the whole thesis. There is a gap in the supply and demand for compute, but it's not nearly as big right now as it seems. The reason for that, and I've heard like, sort of a 2 to 3 times shortfall from where the demand is to where the supply is. But when people quote these numbers, what they're really talking about is the supply in the cloud, right? And that's the core problem, right? The cloud is not GPUs. The cloud is a handful of companies that own a handful of data centers in a handful of locations. So like, let's say for instance, AWS owns a bunch of big buildings in Texas and where else ever, and they have GPUs in there, and that's where most people are getting their compute from. Like, yes, is there a shortage there? Absolutely. But is there a shortage overall? Not nearly as much. There are thousands of data centers in the US alone that are operating at 12 to 18% capacity. So huge source of supply there. And like right away, one of the first things we've done is we're going to all these independent data centers and we're plugging them in. And it's not just in the US. It's in, I think we're in over 100 countries across the world. So even in the sort of short to medium term, kind of like, that's why I keep going back to the Airbnb analogy, right? You could have said there's a shortage of hotels, but then you start using people's houses and the shortage goes away. Now that said, the second problem is like, all right, as I mentioned earlier, the demand for compute is doubling every 3.4 months. So that 10x growth every 18 months. So it's like, okay, fine. Well, sure, you can argue that Ionet can go in and sort of satisfy this demand with the independent data centers, but for how long? Well, I think what we're going to see, as we see with every technology, is it's going to get easier to use computers for AI, for both inference and training. And so, for instance, right now, everyone in the world has a GPU. Everyone who has a laptop has a GPU in the laptop. Now, some people have very powerful GPUs like 4090s. Some people have less powerful. But I think what we'll see is that these consumer GPUs will become more and more able to do AI operations like inferencing or fine tuning or training. And so right there, the supply expands even more. And that's a market that like the big cloud has no chance of tapping into. Like, you need a deep end to do that. And then over the long term, and I can't predict exactly when, but I think the same thing will happen for mobile devices. We may see a world in 5 to 10 years or even sooner. I mean, technology is moving so quickly, where mobile devices can support enterprise AI applications. And then all of a sudden, you've got this potential source of potentially billions of GPUs. And so I think, if we sort of look at this in the short term, it's obviously there's this low hanging fruit of working with these independent data centers. But as the technology continues to improve, we can expand our supply to both consumer and mobile devices. And this is something that the cloud, like, simply structurally can never do.
Yeah, totally. And thank you so much for answering that, Tori. We have another exciting question from a community member, and this is something that is such an interesting question, because it talks about not only what Ionet is doing and building, but sort of more kind of where Ionet sits within the wider ecosystem of Web3. So we have a question by arc.gfx, and it says, what strategy does Ionet have in place to foster partnerships and collaborations with other and possibly even major players within the Web3 and AI ecosystems? And how will these alliances enhance platforms' capabilities and adoptions? And I know we also, for those of you who don't know, we also have a graph with like over 42 partners that we have worked with or are building something with, which is incredibly exciting. But Tory, would love to hear your thoughts on unpacking this in a little bit more detail. How are we building more collaborations with other major players within the Web3 ecosystem and possibly even AI?
Sure. I mean, the short answer is we're just doing it. You know, we have a partnerships team that's going out and building all these partnerships. You know, but to sort of really unpack this and I think get to the heart of the question. Now, this is getting a little bit technical because when you sort of like the easy way to describe Ionet is that is an Airbnb of GPUs. I think that's a great idea, but it's not totally novel. There are other people that do this. What really makes this different is this it's this technology called clustering. And clustering is basically the ability to take multiple computers and have them work as a single powerful supercomputer. Now, clustering is right now like table stakes for enterprise AI, right? If OpenAI were to use a single computer to train GPT-3, it would have taken them 10 years. So pretty much anyone who's using AI, whether that's OpenAI or Uber or Instacart, they're using tens to even sometimes hundreds of computers at the same time, all working together. Now, clustering is actually so if computers are located in the same location, it's quite easy to do, right? So if you want to go to AWS and get a cluster of 100 A100s, they can do that, right? Because all of their computers are in the same location. They can physically plug them together or use some software that allows co-located computers to work together. Where Ionet really differentiates itself is we created the first technology that allows users to build clusters from different geographic locations. So with Ionet, you can create a cluster where you have 10 GPUs from Canada, 10 from the US, 10 from Hong Kong, 10 from Singapore, 10 from, I don't know, Dubai. And this is sort of like, this is really our secret sauce because to compete in the enterprise market, you need to build these clusters. And to do it as a DPIN, you basically need to be able to cluster from multiple different locations. Because of this, we do offer a very unique offering in that we can serve enterprise clients. And that's why you see a lot of these other compute DPINs are actually partners with us. Aether is partners with us. Render is partnered with us. Filecoin is partnered with us. And so we're actually working with a lot of the other decentralized compute providers to become suppliers on the Ionet network to ultimately serve some of the enterprise use cases.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Tory, and providing that clarification. That's fantastic to see. So, guys, I know we've received nearly 100 questions, but we'll take one more. And any other questions you may have, if you haven't already joined our Discord, please feel free to do so. We take questions every single week, and the leadership team is always active in answering a lot of these questions. So if you haven't had your question answered just yet, please don't worry. Like, our Discord is there, and we're super active in going through all of them and giving you the answers that you need. But just in the interest of taking one more question, we have a question here from ACTH. And ACTH says, I listened to the future plans and they sound great, but I'm curious about this further. Tory, where do you envision Ionet at its peak in your dreams? At what point would you say, wow, I wasn't expecting that?
That's a great question. And I think if I have my vote, that could be the sort of winning question, but I'll let you decide that. So
Okay.
we talk a lot about this idea for displacing AWS, GCP, Azure. I think that's a very clean vision. I mean, it's hard, but it's pretty easy to grok, right? Like, okay, big bad incumbent, Ionet comes and takes them down. I don't think that's my ultimate vision. I think that's just kind of the vision we champion a lot because there's like a clear line that people can see. I think the bigger vision is to create something that no one's ever seen before, which is effectively decentralized AI. And let me step back and unpack this a bit. And this is actually why I got into this space as a whole. And it's funny, like I published this article 5 years ago. Brian Armstrong just tweeted about AI paying AI. If you check out my Medium, I published an article literally 5 years ago that talks about how AI would be paying each other. And there would be like hundreds of billion AI devices around the world, like this IoT economy. And so, I've always seen that like AI is going to be like much, much bigger than people imagine. And it's going to be all these autonomous agents. The problem that I see right now is that AI is controlled by a handful of people, right? And if you look at sort of like the ingredients that go into baking an AI cake, if you will, there are basically three ingredients, right? You need compute, you need data, and you need models. Unfortunately, companies like Google really control all three of those right now. Like they have all the user data. They have the ability to buy all the GPUs, and they also, if they don't own them already, and they also have the capital to pay the best machine learning engineers to create models. And this really creates a vicious cycle. You like the more AI Google builds, the better their service becomes, the more money they make. The more machine learning engineers they can hire, the more computers they can build, the more data they can capture. And so, they just keep on growing more and more dominant. This really scares me. As you've seen, some of the LLMs that these companies are creating are just ridiculous. They're so like censored, and I'm sure everyone saw the issues with Google's AI, with Google's LLM. They can basically like tell the AI to do whatever they want. That personally petrifies me, the idea that like 2 or 3 companies would control the most powerful invention in the history of humanity. So, what I always wanted to build is this idea of a decentralized AI ecosystem. And the way you do that is by decentralizing each of the pieces. And obviously, what Ionet is working on right now is this idea of decentralizing compute. That's the first step. But I think when we really look at our long-term roadmap, we sort of conquer this compute side first, and then we move on to decentralizing the models. And like one of the ideas is creating like a decentralized Hugging Face, for example, and then potentially at some point decentralizing the data as well. And I don't know how we do each of these, whether we build it ourselves, whether we partner. I mean, there's a lot of great players out there like Grass doing things with decentralized data, but the idea is to decentralize all 3 of these and then effectively create this platform that will allow users to build decentralized AI apps on top of that. And we've actually already done that a bit with BC8.ai, which is it's the only, in my opinion, truly decentralized AI app. I would highly recommend checking it out. But you can it's like a stable diffusion clone. So that's not too novel. But if you go in and play with it, you can see that like every payment is done on chain. Everything is done on decentralized GPUs. So if we create this network that is completely censorship resistant, in the long term, completely permissionless, that allows anyone to go on, build their own apps on this platform of, access this data, access these models, access this compute. Basically, what you have is this entire decentralized AI ecosystem, and it will be powered by the IO coin. That's my sort of long-term vision, and that's like, I can't even begin to fathom how much that market would be worth, because it simply doesn't exist.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Tory. Like something truly thought-provoking there, and something for us to all think about, right? It's the enormous potential of this industry, what we're building, and the challenge that the tech companies face at large. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for joining the AMA today, the State of the Network AMA with Tory. We won't keep you any longer, but it's been fantastic having all of you here. We absolutely love our community. And for those of you who want to find out more about the Ionet project, head on over to our website, head on over to our Discord, our Telegram. Feel free to be part of the noise, part of the conversation, get involved in the discussion. We would always love your thoughts, your feedback on what we're building. Let's build something truly incredible together. So, Tory, thank you so much for your time today. It's been great having you here, and it's been great with all of you listeners joining in. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you around in the next AMA, which will hopefully be next week or the week after.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. All right. Take care, guys. Bye.